Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of What's the Point, the podcast that helps you find your meaning and fulfillment for work and daily life through the stories of great people I'm delighted to know, and none other than George Ryland. So if I give you a little bit of context as to how George and I know each other and let her do an introduction. George and I have been working together on British Forces Radio since December. So she is an absolute magnificent force for good in the world of radio, and I can't raise her up highly enough. So George, why don't you introduce yourself better than I ever can?
I don't think I can do better than that. Thank you so much, Dani. It's lovely to be on the podcast, and it's also really lovely to not be the one asking the questions for once. It's very novel for me. So I have been in radio for a couple of decades now. I have worked at different commercial stations in the UK, also done quite a bit of time abroad, did best part of a decade in the Middle East, Oman, and then Dubai. And with BFBS, I've lived in Cyprus, in Gibraltar, also did Afghanistan, and right now I'm at HQ in the UK.
Oh, and George, it is fantastic to know you, to know your journey. And actually, for our listeners here that aren't clear what British Forces Radio is all about, do you want to just give a bit of a headline of that?
British Forces Broadcasting Service. So we are a network which is all around the world. We've got local presenters everywhere from Canada to Brunei, Gibraltar. We've also got them in the UK. So it's a huge network. My show is global. So it's 4 till 7 p.m. UK time. And that is on DAB+. It's on FM in the UK. And you can also get it online at bfbs.com and via the BFBS app. So essentially the point is to serve those who serve. It's to go where they go and to put out content for them. But it's also, I have to say, a really very good playlist. So it's a good listen. Give it a go.
It is, George. It is, George. And I was just so heartwarmed, genuinely, that you brought me on board to help with the forces globally. So a massive thank you from the bottom of my heart, and a massive thank you for joining me on this pod. And what a delight to be interviewing you. You know, the tables have turned. So are you ready? Should we jump straight in?
Go for it.
Should we jump straight in? Great. So George, what would you say is the point of your life?
Well, I think it used to be really all about radio, and radio is still massively important to me, but it's more of a whole thing for me now. I got married last year, and that did change things quite a bit. I mean, for the better. Now, you know, I'm sharing my life with someone, and it's become a bit more of a whole fulfilled life. I think, you know, there's other things that are really important as well, and I think probably that makes you just a more rounded person. And I think we've all learned, haven't we, with the pandemic and everything else, that other things are important. You've got to look after yourself, and I guess it's a case of, you know, put your own oxygen mask on first. We all know that we have to look after ourselves better, and I think that's good.
Yeah, George, truly. And that fulfillment that you mentioned, it really can only come from within. No one can tell you what that is, what that isn't. Only you can know what that is, and only you can develop that. So fantastic. Great point for your life. Love it. So in the wider picture, George, whether it's with the troops, whether it's in workplaces, what trends and issues would you say that you're seeing within people in 2024? What are you hearing?
The first one across the board, wherever I go, it's confidence. People really are lacking in confidence, and I think you can point to different things. You can point to the pandemic. You can point to how we bring children up, what we teach them in schools, and social media and phones are so massive in this as well. And if you don't feel that confidence in yourself, it makes life really difficult. And I know we've spoken about this on the show before, this whole, you know, fake it till you make it. And it's not really a thing. If you dial into that, you've got to have some confidence to build on it. And I genuinely think that's where we're lacking. And the better you feel about yourself, the better you can be to other people as well. So I would say for me, it really is that. But then on the flip side of that, and I know it can be a bit difficult to see this at times, the world's a really scary place. You know, you switch on the news and, oh, it's a lot all the time. But I also see a trend of people wanting better and fighting back against the hatred. And that, I think, is so positive to see. people want a better world. We don't want to be angry at you know, certain demographics or whatever it is. We are, I think, growing kinder. And yes, there is, you know, a fringe that are going the other way, but I do see some good for sure. There is a lot of hope.
Oh, wonderful, George. And, you know, hope. I've got books here from Holocaust survivors, and they talk about exactly that, hope getting them through. Hope is such a powerful vehicle for getting us through these difficult situations. So I love that you allude to that. Thank you. And then, George, if we look at you as a great woman, a great leader, a great pioneer in the radio world, for you to be at your best, George, what strong steps or habits do you have for yourself?
The first one that springs to mind is sleep, because I presented breakfast shows for too many years and I did not sleep enough for a long time. And the difference now is incredible. You know, my family and friends certainly like me more. I can do a lot more with my day. But that, again, it's putting the work in. It's not just about what hours you do. You've got to, as you have taught us on the show, you've got to have that evening routine down. You've got to have your morning routine down and really sort of train yourself into those habits so that you can sleep. And I would say I'm not there, but I'm probably 70% of the way now to being a good sleeper. And I never thought I would be ever again. And that has made such a difference, just to be able to think in the day and to be clearer and to get more done. And a lot of that, again, we'll go back to the phones. I put my phone down in the evening. You know, I used to be obsessed with looking at memes before I went to sleep, and I would go through so many of them. And I thought that was fine. But since not doing it, I sleep better. That blue light thing, it's true. It really is true.
George, and I think if you or I could bottle up that feeling of a great night's sleep and sell it, we'd be billionaires, you know, because that feeling of, you know, like you say, you're kinder to your friends and family when you've had a good night's sleep. It is magical for everything in work and daily life. But then if we look at this in a bit of a deeper way, George, how would you say that you avoid negative personal experiences like burnout?
That is really about being structured on an everyday basis so that you don't get to point E, say. You got to cut things off at B or C. And that, you know, I'm still putting work into that. I am far from perfect, but I am getting better at it. But again, it's putting all those things in, like you talk about with resilience, so that you never get to that burnout stage. Because, you know, I've been close at times and I've seen people who have been like so burnt out, their health's affected, their mental health's affected, they can't work. And it's really not a place that you want to be. So it is about looking after yourself on a daily basis. And the problem is that it's all those things that are so easy to be the first to go when you've got childcare and you've got work and you've got chores and you've got everything else. You know, oh, that hour down the gym, that's gone. And the meditation, that's gone, and everything else. So it really is being so disciplined with doing those things for yourself that you know you need, so that you don't get to that stage. And again, it's easy to sit here and say all of this. It's a lot harder to do it in practice when you've got everyday life weighing down on you, but it is worth it. And that's something that I'm learning, that there's things I have to do for myself. And again, it's that put your oxygen mask on first, isn't it? You got to do those things. You have to look after yourself, not to be selfish, but so that you're able to function every day and look after the people around you that you want to.
Yeah, George, it's that it's not selfish, is it? It's that great old adage that you cannot pour from an empty cup. You want to have your cup full, so there's more that's good of you to give. Yeah, really love that. And you know, the gym, it sounds such a simple habit, but I was actually reading a book this week and it said in it that going to the gym is like taking an antidepressant every day. And I think that's a really powerful message.
Oh, it's so true. And I can't work out at the moment because I have some problems with my elbows. So you know, if I'm having a good day, I can do spin, but there's not much else I can do. So I'm walking instead. I'm kind of dreading winter because I'll be walking out in the rain. But yeah, I miss it so much. And it's a massive stress reliever. It's that hour where you're not necessarily thinking about other stuff. It's just that hour for you, or half an hour, or 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. You know, Joe Wicks always says, even if you only do 5 minutes, you don't regret it. So, yeah, I mean, if not everyone's a gym person, whatever it is, just making sure that you have done however many minutes it is really does make a difference.
Truly. And, you know, and I hope you can get to more as well. Truly. And then, George, if we look at the bigger picture for you, what would you say success looks like for you? We're all different in what success is, but what is it for you?
It's changed a lot, actually, in the last few years for me. Again, it used to be all, you know, where you get to in your career and how much money you've got. And actually, I see now that that's really not it for me. It's changed to become, I think, a more whole thing. It's how happy am I on an everyday basis? Have I got that community around me that I want? Do I feel good? And yeah, money, don't get me wrong. I want more of it, because it does make life a lot easier. It might not make you happy, but it takes some problems away. But it isn't about amassing as much of it as I physically can anymore. I mean, that makes me sound like I was terrible, and I wasn't. But, you know, it is about doing the things that make you happy, about having that barbecue with friends at the weekend and all of those kind of things, as much as it is work and finances. I think it's just got to be a bigger picture, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I love that you said about being how happy you are every day. I love that measurement of success, about every day. How happy are you? I really take that. And there's a book here, Tal Ben Shahar. I think I might have recommended it to you, the Happier book, and he talks about choosing your life's currency. And for some people it is wealth, for some people it is joy, and perhaps, you know, in that light, that's your measurement every day. How happy am I each day?
Yeah, and if you look at the amount of celebrities that struggle, have to, you know, take time off in their music careers or whatever it is, those things aren't bringing them happiness. You know, yeah, okay, you've got all of this money and these massive houses and these cars, but that's not it, I don't think, for the majority of people, unless you've got the people around you that you love and you feel good about yourself. Yeah, it's nice to have, but it isn't everything.
Quite. I mean, look at that shining example that you've just perfectly given. You know, Matthew Perry this year, you know, in Friends, we all loved that, but yet he didn't love his life, did he?
Yeah, I mean, his struggle was decades long, and it's really sad, because, you know, he was so loved by everyone that watched him, but in reality he was really unhappy.
And in reality, thereby possibly unsuccessful.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, let's look at you, George. And when life does exacerbate you, when you have a bit of a down moment and you don't feel successful and things aren't going your way, when life does really take its toll, because it does, what is it that keeps you going?
I think on the really bad days, have the bad day, feel the feelings, and just you sit with them. I think I'm learning you got to go through. There's no going around with this stuff. Today's going to be a bad day, and I'm going to be a bit miserable and grumpy, and I'm going to moan, and I'm going to list when I moan. But then tomorrow, I will get back up, and things will be better. I think, you know, I think sometimes that's where the old toxic positivity comes in. And we've probably all had that when you've spoken to a mate or something. You're like, oh, well, this has happened. They're like, oh, but at least, and you're like, oh, just give me this sucks right now. This does. And I think Brené Brown's really good at that with her Daring Greatly book and everything else that she talks about. You know, you feel those feelings, but get back up and do it again. So that, I think, is something that I'm really learning this year. And a lot of that's thanks to you.
Well, yes, I'm all for getting back up. And one of my favorite lines in the world, you know, quotes is, make the comeback stronger than the setback.
Nice. I love that.
Good, hey? Yeah. Good. And then, George, you, what 3 values would you say you live by right now in 2024? What 3 values are you living by?
I try hard to be honest.
You
know, being authentic, I think, is becoming more and more important in the world, especially, you know, AI coming in and everything else. And we can see through it now. You can see through the insane Instagram, you know, everything else like that. Like, but there's another side to that. And I think that's really important, just to actually be who you are and be honest. Also be kind, and it might sound a bit cliche now, but actually the nicer we are to each other, the easier things get, because most people are just trying their best. And the third one, I'm such a nerd, be organized. I just love to be organized. It's who I am as a person. So if there's a list, I'm going to make a list, and I've got different lists on paper to on my phone. So yeah, I love a list.
I love that. Organized.
I'm honest about it. Yeah.
George, honest, authentic, kind, organized. Love these values. And how would you say that they keep you fully focused on living the point of your life?
Well, the organized, certainly. I've learned to not overwhelm myself by what I can achieve in a day. But you taught us to focus on 3 key things that you can achieve that day. And it doesn't matter if they're small, doesn't matter what it is. But I now sort of have a plan each day, and I get more stuff done. And then you feel better about every day that you've got that bit of stuff done. And I think it all kind of snowballs from there in a good way. You've got to get yourself in that good cycle.
Oh, I love that. Here's to the good cycle and keeping that going, especially when the down cycle happens, that down spiral, but knowing how to get back to the good cycle. As you say, allowing yourself to have that bad day, but knowing it's a day, and then getting back in, getting back in and on and up. That's it, George. George, this has been absolutely fantastic to speak to you. Have you got any thoughts, feelings, insights that you want to share with our audience?
Just how incredible it's been to have you on the show, and genuinely it means a lot to listeners as well. And I think the nicest email that I got was from a lady who was saying that she wished what you teach people was taught in schools to our kids, to give them more confidence growing up and more resilience. And I 100% agree with her. Like, this stuff is so important and it makes so much difference to your day. But until someone sort of guides you through it, yes, it's all stuff you could have done yourself, but it's stuff that I never would have. So thank you.
Oh, and George, and thank you for the absolute light you are to my life. And honestly, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you join forces with me on What's the Point. And thank you so very much, George. And thank you to our listeners for your engagement. And this has been another fantastic episode of What's the Point. Thank you to George Ryland. Thank you, George.
Thanks, Dani.